Hello and welcome. My name is Alan. Grab you a drink, pull you a chair up. We're going to just speak a bit about some of the news going on worldwide here. Um, Here in the last few days, we had a European Union politician from Ireland named Mick Wallace lambast the U.S. for its taking rights away from certain citizens, especially finding out that Roe v. Wade could be overturned, which it ended up being overturned. Mick Wallace questioned if a country would do that. You know, why wouldn't it even go even further to take away human rights? And questioned if America was even a functioning democracy. So, yeah, the Supreme Court decision has really, America's had trouble with its image over the last few years anyway. But this, yeah, now people are speaking out overseas and saying they can't even keep rights for their people. Something that had been essentially a right for 50 years was suddenly swept away, not by elected officials, but by court they have no ability in electing. And I've spoken about the mistake this was by the Supreme Court. Well, now we see it's, pretty much the same way they feel overseas, that are we truly a democracy anymore? Yeah, it was Irish Representative Mick Wallace in the European Union who gave this speech. I don't think I have a full copy of the speech, but yeah, he says a woman's right to choose is a human right. He said in his speech to the European Parliament, which is the full European governing body for the European Union. And he goes on to say, why are we so quiet about challenging the US when they threaten human rights? They spend over 800 billion a year on arms, which is more than most of the world put together, which it is. I think they measured it, and it's like more than the next 10 countries combined. So, yeah, it's what we spend on our military is overly bloated. Uh, Wallace goes on to say they've been at war for 250 years, but they can't afford universal health care. They can't afford a $1.7 trillion debt forgiveness for students. They can't afford a program for the 17 million children that go to bed hungry. Is this a functioning democracy? What's your idea of democracy? Bernie Sanders wasn't even allowed to win the nomination for the Democrats. The Americans couldn't spell democracy. So, yeah. again, this is a pointed uh, speech, and we are struggling because many of the rights of America are being taken away, especially over the last few years. Both parties are responsible. But yeah, a little peek in how some of the other people around the world view us. But now let's kind of zoom over here to Japan. Um, Former premier of Japan, former prime minister, I guess, Shinzo Abe, was just recently assassinated. He was no longer in power, but he was still influential. Uh, this is one of like 9 gun deaths a year in Japan, and that's only because the guy who had the gun had handmade it himself because the gun laws are so stringent there. Yeah, Abe's assassin used a handmade firearm. Um, so yeah. He was the longest serving leader of modern Japan. Yeah, he was uh, apparently killed by a 41-year-old man who had a handmade gun. Abe himself, not necessarily the best of rulers. A lot of restrictions have happened in Japan since he's been in power. And yeah, now it's essentially a one party democracy. I know that feels weird to say one party and democracy at the same time. You'd think democracy is a party of choice, but essentially in America, Republicans and Democrats are just slightly different versions of the same thing. Yeah, but he didn't need to be assassinated. But yeah, I kind of wanted to speak on some of the more international stories of recent, kind of touch on them a bit, put them out there. But uh, as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone asks you to prove something. Someone disagrees with something you say, or you agree with something somebody says. Ask them to cite their sources. I forgot how that ending spiel even went. But speaking of, I will have sources in the description below the video. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.